When I spent 3 years at the University of Maryland, sharing my faith 15 times or more a week and not seeing anybody trust Christ, 3 years that happened. Sometimes it was hard to keep going. Sometimes I would begin to doubt whether I was telling them the truth. And every time I doubted, I would have to just go back and say, okay, I know that Jesus Christ was a historical person. I know he claimed to be God. I know that he is God. I know that he's in my life. I know that he empowers me, and I would bring myself from kind of the bottom. Some days it was just really hard to approach another person and get rejected again. So sometimes I just go home early and say, Lord, I can't deal with it anymore. Sometimes I would have a quiet time on the spot and just say, Lord, I'm having a really hard time here. It's hard approaching people when they might not want to talk to you. The fact that they didn't receive Christ, although disappointing because I'm a real evangelist at heart, I knew that that was their choice. But approaching a number of people and they're not wanting to talk with me, that was hard rejection to deal with. Some days I could move right through it and have a really victorious day. Some days I just, I didn't make it very well and would just hang out at the Union until Hank was ready to go home. But you learn a lot from that. You learn my convictions of the fact that people need to know Christ has just grown through the years. I remember one time on a flight, I love flights, you know, you've got a captive audience. One time on a flight in Brazil, this woman was reading, a young girl, was reading a book by Dalai Lama. And he had just been in Brazil. He was all the rage. I searched for Spiritual Laws booklet or Knowing God Personally booklet. I found one and gave it to her, and I said, why don't you read this and see what you think about it? And Hank and I were back to our books, and at one point I'd say to Hank, she's at the circles, you know, she's at the prayer. And we were praying for her. And when she finished, I said, so what did you think of the booklet? She said, how do you know that Christ comes into your life? I said, well, did you pray that prayer? She says, yeah, I did. So we began to talk about that. And as we were continuing on in the flight, she was done with the booklet and she picks up the Dalai Lama book again. And I'm going, oh, Lord, please don't confuse her. Allow her to be confused. Please let her put that book down. As soon as I prayed that, she closed the book, put it down, and took out the magazine. And she told me later, nah, I never picked it up again. It didn't have the answer. Having grown up knowing Christ my whole life, sometimes I just don't realize what it is that non-Christians go through. But I realize they are so empty and so lost without Christ that I have to share with them. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to tell people how to know Christ. I know that sharing the 4 laws cold turkey is not something that's necessarily done anymore in crusade, but I'll tell you what, it still works. I still see people come to Christ all the time because I'm willing to engage them in conversation. I want them to know my main goal is that they would know how to know Christ personally, even if they aren't ready at the time. At least they'll know so someday they can trust Christ when God so moves in their life.